What's this? Welcome everybody. The 17th of May full council meeting, which was adjourned at 8:15 last night, is now reconvened on the 18th of May. Can I have a seconder? Moved by the Mayor, seconded by Deputy Mayor, General Honorable. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Right, welcome back. I know some of you all may have to leave for a short while. Sophie, you're leaving at a certain time?
11:50 until about 1:30.
Okay. And Rob, you need to leave earlier in the evening. Okay. Right, the first submitter for this morning, Kevin Burrows. Welcome.
I read the instruction back there. It says it's automatic.
He's really good at turning you on.
Apologise for that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. In my submission, I'd just really just like to talk about two of the issues I put forward. One is housing, and the other one is the CCO. With housing, yes, I fully support council getting more involved in housing. We all know the housing market nationwide is in a really bad state, and there's been market failure. And I think both central government and local governments need to step up and be involved in housing. The age-friendly survey that we did, that I was involved in, showed clearly that council should be more involved in the housing situation. It's also said that council had a responsibility to show that safe, affordable houses is a basic human right for people. So there is a real issue about it. May not be as bad as it is nationwide, the housing situation, but it is developing here. And I was reading today, I read the other day in the local newspaper, the house prices has increased something by about 30% in the past year. Yeah, I just found that. Developers tend to make their money in building 3 and 4 bedroom homes. That's where the money lies for them. And because of that, there's a lack of 2 bedroom homes. Yeah, lots of older people, for instance, once the families have grown up and left home, they're living in 3 and 4 bedroom homes. They start looking for usually a 2 bedroom home because they want a spare bedroom for the grandkids and stuff like that coming around the weekends. Although some would look for a 1 bedroom. Because the money's not in the 2 bedroom home situation, very few of them are being built, and it's difficult. When people do move, that frees up the 3 and 4 bedroom home on the housing market. So there's a blockage there. And I think council need to think about some incentives for developing more 2 bedroom homes. I've tried to put a couple of suggestions in there. One of the things, when you talk about large developments, for consent for large developments, I think I put the number 10 in there, but yeah, part of the consent needs to be that a certain amount of those homes need to be a mixture of 2 bedrooms, but good quality, affordable homes. So I believe councils can influence those sorts of things. I've recently become interested in land banking in Kāpiti, and I'm not too sure, I have to say, I'm not too sure how big a problem it is, really, but I've come across 2 instances where people have been sitting on sections of land for a few years and then selling them off. So but that's only just 2 instances, I'd have to say. But I think it may be worthwhile if council investigated that issue about if there is a problem. If there is a problem, then they need to think about how you can release that problem, ease that problem. In other words, penalise some of these people who are sitting on land and doing nothing for it. The instances I know of is people have bought the land, paid their rates on it, on an empty section, sat there for 3 or 4 years and then sold it as a big profit. Yeah. I've suggested that they be penalised by extra rates if they don't develop that land. But the other issue I'd like to talk to is the CCO. I've got no objection to council setting up a holding company. The big issue is what goes in the holding company in there. And there's no information about that in the long-term plan in there. I've tried to put down a few what I consider to be issues about CCOs in there. There are some good points about them. There are some opportunities for them. There's also some big challenges for them too. One of the biggest challenges for council when establishing a CCO or a CCTO, a trading organisation, is what goes in them, what decisions the council make as the democratically elected representatives of Kāpiti, and what decisions can be made by our board of directors, trustees, etc. So I would encourage, and I'm sure you will, any councillors when the issue comes up about what goes into the CCO, you need to think quite hard about that issue, about it, because it's a matter of democracy, really. And I do give the example of older people's housing, and I draw a distinction between older people's housing and social housing. I've heard people say one and the same thing, social housing meaning older people housing. In my mind, they're quite different, because politically, councils set the rents for older people's housing. You saturate, what is it, 80% now of the market rates. That's a political decision that council make every year. I do not believe that could be made by a board of directors, or should be made. It could be made, it shouldn't be made, sorry, by a board of directors or a board of trustees. That's a political decision that you need to answer for to the public whenever it's done. And there's always been a good response so far. The other issue, if you put housing, older people's housing, in a trust, part of the reason some people some councils have done that is that those social housing become or can apply for income-related rents. And if you do that applies, income-related rents applies to social housing. So if you put older people's housing in that trust, they get income-related rents, but when those houses become vacant, they become social housing. So it's not necessarily would go to an older person. It would go to people with an older need or a social need.
Kevin, you got just over 5 minutes left.
Okay.
You can use up the 5 minutes. I don't mind.
No, that's about it, really. Just one issue was the age-friendly. Just saying that we're actually back here on Thursday with council staff making a presentation. It's going along great so far, and we need to talk about what the next moves are, and that's it, really.
Questions? Rob McCann? Councillor McCann.
Through you, Your Worship, Mr Mayor. Kevin, thank you very much for your submission, and it's great to hear that you're supportive of further action being taken place in the housing sphere. If you were to look at the balance, and could be a tricky one for you, do you think we should be putting more emphasis on trying to encourage housing for families or housing for our seniors?
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, I mean, there's a mixture of both of them. Yes, we're going to have an influx of population, I think, from coming north, particularly if the transmission gully opens. So yes, I mean, I've tried to say, that I've concentrated on older people's houses because I'm an older person, put it bluntly. But there is a mixture required there. That's what I try to say in part of any developments. Yes, you'll need houses for families in there. I once saw, just on a bit of an aside, about a year ago, the population and predicted population of Wellington and the makeup. And the makeup is about 30% older people over the age of 65. A lot of young people, and I think that was getting to be school age up to the age of 18, I think was about 16 or 17%. So there's a big chunk of older people. There's also a big chunk of younger people there. And this was an economic survey, and there's very few people in the centre, if you like, who are earning the money.
I have one further question. Thank you. I've got one further question. As you correctly point out, the subsidies involved with our senior housing, if we would put that in a trust, if we were able to solve the issue, which is that the next generation of people that go in there could be seniors and from this region, is that something that you would think is a good idea, or you still have reservations?
Yeah. I mean, in principle, if you could solve that issue, it might work. I mean, I don't really want to say yes or no, to be blunt, until I've solved the details of it, stuff like that. But in principle, yeah. I mean, there is a problem, I believe, with social housing, but it shouldn't be fixed with the expense of older people's housing.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Looks like no other questions. Thank you, Kevin, for coming up and speaking to the submission. Next speaker, submitter is Cameron Butler. Welcome. You're doing a tandem, are you?
Yes, my support person.
You look like you need one.
Thank you. Why though? Just kidding. Okay. Kia ora everyone, Mr. Mayor, councillors, board members and staff. My name is Cameron Butler. I'm a resident of Tihoro, and I'd like to introduce Kirsty Doyle, who's a resident of Otaki. We're not here speaking as personal, we're here speaking on behalf of the Otaki Promotions Group. Hopefully you're all aware that the Otaki Promotions Group runs the fabulous Otaki Kite Festival, and we have run that for 9 years in a row. We've managed to skirt the COVID side of things, fingers crossed, and we're looking at the 10th anniversary of the Kite Festival next year, so we're very excited about that. The Otaki Kite Festival is the biggest kite festival in New Zealand, and according to the kite flyers that go to all of these festivals, they rate it as the best in New Zealand, which we're very proud of that fact. Another big fact about the Kite Festival is it is free for everyone to attend. There is no door charge, there's no charge for the people to come along. And the recent one that we had was potentially our biggest ever. We guesstimate that there would have been around about 25,000 people attending. And those people come from Kāpiti, Wellington, Marston, couple from Hawke's Bay, Palmerston North and New Plymouth. So it is the lower North Island coming to this fantastic festival, and it literally almost brings Otaki to a stop because of the amount of traffic. However, the locals buy in. there was one Facebook post by someone complaining about the traffic, and they got a lot of feedback about how much the Kite Festival brings back to the area. Now, we have been the recipient of the Kāpiti Council Major Events Fund over the last 2 years, and will be for our next and our 10th anniversary. And this has allowed us to grow the Kite Festival and increase it and make it, a much better event. It also allows us to give back to the community, and we give out approximately $5,000 to local community organisations who come in and volunteer their time, and we give them an honorarium. So the like of the Scouts, the Walker Group, so the Surf Life Saving, the Neighbourhood Watch, and the local schools, they come in and they help us, and they get an honorarium for that. So we're helping the community with our Kite Festival. The Otaki Promotions Group also runs the Community Expo, which unfortunately 2 years in a row has been hit by COVID. We also are involved in the Light Up Otaki competition, and also we're looking at running other things to benefit the Otaki community. So with that 10-year anniversary coming up, what we're looking at is into the future, our 11th and 12th, and being able to carry on the community festival, the Kite Festival. It is not a cheap exercise, particularly as we run it for free. And we don't want to go away from that, running it for free. We will be potentially having to look for sponsorship. However, there are some pitfalls with that, and we do have some concerns about community buy-in versus corporate sponsorship. So that's something for us to look at in the future. So what we'd like to talk to the Kāpiti District Council about is the future, and whether there is something in the budget, may not be, hopefully there is, that whether the council can underwrite if we are unable to gain enough sponsorship for the Kite Festival, because it would be a massive shame for us to not be able to run it, or to actually go backwards in terms of its size and its appeal to the community. So that's the crux. We're not going to talk for ages about that, but we would like to work with the council in the future to try and ensure that the Kite Festival carries on well into the future, and we can even look at the 20th anniversary Kite Festival. So,
thank you, Cameron. It's a question that the issue that you raised before about corporate sponsorship. It always intrigued me. You haven't. Or the question is, have you already tried, or you have balked because of what you think are some pitfalls around it? One of the things that I can think of for your Kite Festival is the marriage between what you kite symbolize and somebody like Meridian Energy, which generates electricity through wind turbines. This is a climate change ambassador type role that you can play. Whether you've explored that or you haven't, or should you be actually trying it before you come to council and say, look, we need other underwriting protection.
So that's something we have been already discussing at our committee meetings, but that's as far as it's gone so far. At the moment, we're focused on ensuring that we bring forward a very fantastic 10th anniversary. Once that's over, we start planning for the very next one, and that's where we will probably look at. We have already had a sponsorship proposal, though it was from an alcohol company, and we didn't feel that fitted very well with the Kite Festival, particularly being a very family event. So yes, we have been discussing it, Mr. Mayor, but haven't gone past that as of yet. So our intention would be is that we would be looking at getting sponsorship, but we'd like to ensure that the Kite Festival goes ahead, even if those attempts failed.
I would actually encourage you to start that conversation with Meridian, for instance.
Yep.
Anyway, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks, Cameron. I'm sure all the councillors around here know just how valuable that particular event is. That's certainly been through the Major Events Fund. Is the reason you're asking us for this support now because you think the Major Events Fund won't support you in the future?
Is that a question you can answer a better question?
No, it's not. We've always found that the Major Events Fund has been very supportive. It was just a matter of to put the reason we're here today is just to discuss and just to bring it to the long-term plans.
So there is some discussion within the panellists and the team that one of the assumptions that events should become self-funding over a period of time and grow is unrealistic. So that discussion has yet to come back to councillors, but it's interesting to note that you're just trying to make sure that this is in front of people.
We just really wanted to bring it in front of people. We've always found the major events, but we've discussed at length about the issues that we have trying to get sponsorship with the Major Events Fund and the reasons behind that, and we've always found them very supportive.
Cool. Thanks.
In terms of a return, Councillor McCann, the last Kite Festival, the return was 20.7 to 1 in terms of economic return for every dollar that Kāpiti Council put in. Yeah, we were quite happy with that.
Councillor Coates.
Hey Tim, I want to start by just thanking you for the work that you do, Kirsty, you particularly. I know that you're the driving force behind, I know you do a little bit there, Cam, but Kirsty, the driving force behind the Kite Festival. And so just want to acknowledge that while you're here today. Could you, I guess, help councillors understand, aside from the comments that Councillor McCann has said around the major events funding, in terms of operating the Kite Festival, how many volunteers are actually involved in putting that event on?
Go on, this is what you're here for.
We have a committee of about 5 or 6 people that meet regularly. That's our OPG committee. We have a large team of volunteers which come in on the day. Cam talked about how we have different groups come in on a voluntary basis, and we give them a koha to do different for fundraising. But we also have probably about 35 people throughout the weekend that come as marshals, helpers, set up, all of those sorts of things. So it really is a big community event. Oh, and of course the big one is our rubbish, our recycling. Have teams of people, rubbish bins throughout all the different arenas, and everything's recycled. So it's a big team.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the numbers are in the hundreds in terms of total volunteers to run the event.
Oh, I would think it would be in the hundreds.
No?
No, I would say probably 100 volunteers over the weekend.
Sure.
I don't think it would be in the hundreds.
Okay, so in terms of the volunteer aspect of it, how critical is the event reliant on having those volunteers to run it?
It's absolutely critical. We have everything is run by the volunteers in terms of we've got the infrastructure, but from set up to pack down, it's very volunteer.
Yeah, so without the volunteers, you couldn't run the event?
No, we could not.
So help me understand the, obviously I do a little bit, but also councillors, that what's the apprehension around taking on a major investor, a major sponsor for the Kite Festival? What do you see the risks? I know that you're looking at it, but what do the team perceive as the risks in doing so?
I think the risks that we see is that I don't want to say it's over the control of the event. It's just that we don't charge entries. I don't know if anybody within our committee really has the expertise to go out and sign up some sort of sponsorship deal.
One of the things we would be concerned about is the community buy-in, because it is seen as the Otaki Kite Festival. There's very strong buy-in from the community that they see this as part of what we do. If that was to become a corporate event or corporate sponsored event, we would be worried about the volunteering side of things, and also the community just not having the buy-in that they do now. So
essentially it's the risk to the volunteers that I think you're already struggling to get some years in terms of adequate numbers?
Yeah, we can have problems getting volunteers. I mean, we always, like any community organisation, rely on the same people, and it's the same people that come in. Getting people to volunteer on committees and things, I don't know the committees that you're on, we find harder each year to get people's buy-in. But the people volunteer because they love the event and they like that it's free and it's done locally. I don't know, like Cam said, if we had some major corporate sponsor, whether we would get the same people in. And also the people that arrange the Kite Festival, or the volunteers on the committee, do it because they love it and they love the district, and it's a fabulous community event. Would you get the same from some corporate with their head office in Auckland? Possibly not. Everybody on the committee does it because it's free and it's a family event, and it's really good feeling and really good community buy-in.
Okay, thanks team.
Councillor Holbrook.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in today, and I just wanted to put again a highlight on what Councillor McCann has said about it being difficult for free events to become self-sustaining. So I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about possible funding opportunities and whether you've explored them. So first of all, you are a charitable trust, aren't you? So you're eligible to apply for any funding that's available. Have you got that status?
We're an incorporated society.
Oh, okay. So there's still opportunities there, isn't there? So in terms of sponsorship, do you find it difficult that Otaki is seen as so separate? We had a comment yesterday during the hearings that it's only 10-15 minutes drive up the road, but there's this perception that Otaki sits separately and on its own. And in terms of finding sponsorship, do you find that you're a little bit limited to Otaki businesses and organisations, or do you find there's more of a district-wide or even region-wide and even up into the Horowhenua kind of interest in sponsorship for the event?
We've very much had local businesses help us out through the Harcourt's Big Dig and the professionals and a number of other companies in the area. We haven't, as of yet, gone out wider and to cast the net for bigger or more corporate sponsors.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about it being the best kite festival in New Zealand, not just in Kāpiti or Wellington, means that there's huge opportunities, even nationwide, to try and get that kind of sponsorship. So I just wanted to kind of ask whether that was something that you'd thought about.
As previously said, we have discussed it at our committee meetings, but we haven't got to the stage of writing down the list of who we're going to have a chat with to see whether they'll come on board.
Cool. So Councillor Coots mentioned volunteering. So there are various funds too that support organisations who support volunteering. Have you looked into that at all?
No, not as of yet.
Yeah.
We do. We have not last year, but we have in previous years applied for community trust funding for big items like the toilets and those sorts of things.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So
we actually didn't last year because we felt that with the all the COVID issues that we just thought the money could go to people that probably needed it a little bit more than we did. So we didn't have international tourists, so we saved money that way.
I think you do deserve it. So there's actually a council, Tonya, a council staff person who is specifically her role is to support organisations in terms of fundraising. Have you had a conversation with her yet?
No.
That might be a good place to start because she'll know all about.
Right.
Not available? Okay.
Sorry, what is Tonya's last name? Sorry.
Can I just caution?
Yeah.
I'm just cautioning sending people away. We've made a number of requests to support from Tonya for other organisations, and the response is that she's just too busy processing council. So I'm just wary of sending people away. It'd be great if she can assist, but I don't want to set false expectations and then it not eventuate.
Look, I've got 5 minutes left for this session. Angela.
Thanks for coming in today, and I know you guys do an amazing job of the Kite Festival. You spoke about different kite festivals around New Zealand. Have you looked at how they're funded?
They are all significantly smaller than us, and they don't do anything near what we actually do. It is more of a kite flyers come in together and set up small displays, and people. There's no comparison to our kite festival. Some of the communities get small amount of council funding, but it's nothing on the scale that we do. It is just some kites. We do attractions and stalls, and we had a circus and entertainment and those sorts of things. Yeah. It's more of a park atmosphere with a few kites up.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you. Can I just say thanks for coming in today to talk to the LTP about what you do and what you offer our community. And from an ED perspective, you're absolutely well respected in the work that you do and what you do for our community in Otaki and Kāpiti at large, really, because all the accommodation providers are always busy those weekends, and so it's absolutely really well respected. But I would just say don't be scared about getting a big corporate sponsor. I mean, I go to a lot of community events around New Zealand that are sponsored by big corporates, but they still have an amazing community feel to them, and they still need that volunteer base and that community buy-in. So please don't be scared, and do reach out to our council to help you and guide you through that process, because we would hate to lose you in our community. So thanks for coming in.
Yeah, we would hate to lose us too.
Right, I've got one last quick question from Councillor Holliday. Quick question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, Ian is congratulating you on the fantastic work you do. I'm assuming you're more likely to do a report back or something like that to the large event fund or something along that sort of line. But I was just wondering if you've got financials or other information, you could perhaps circulate it to us as councillors so we just get a better understanding of your event.
What question to Jamie?
Yes, we've just been asked. Jamie Bigwood has just asked for our plan and what we did last year and all of our survey details. So she's currently putting that together. So it should be available soon.
Excellent. If you can forward that to us as well, it'd be much appreciated.
Sure. As soon as we get up, we can send it to them.
Thank you.
So just before you go, a word of advice for me. If somebody tells the mayor to go fly a kite, can I tell them that I can do it in Otaki?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. As long as we can charge a fee for that.
Look, thank you for coming here and presenting your submission.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right, the next submitter, Rikarangi Residents Association, Anna Carter here.
So unfortunately, Anna has had to cancel.
Okay.
We may be able to fit her in tomorrow, but we do have the speaker following morning tea here already.
John Hayes, do you want to jump in now? Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, and councillors, thank you very much for your presence this morning, and congratulations on your fortitude. Not quite ready. Actually, I'm here almost as an individual submitter. I did circulate this information amongst the members of the Housing Task Force. That is largely dissipated now. Very busy people.
John, just this is my hearing the voice of Beach FM.
I'm afraid I've been constantly on Beach FM every day since October 2019 without a break. So yes, I'm terribly overexposed.
When I hear the voice, I straight away tune into the radio.
Sorry about that, yes. Now, I've been involved in Beach FM for about 22 years now, and involved in radio for 56. And recently was invited it was a few years ago now, wasn't it, Guru? The Mayor invited me to be part of the Housing Task Force. That Housing Task Force submitted a report in 2019, which I think has stood up pretty well. We're pretty proud of that. It was very complete, and I don't think we'd like to alter too much about it. I would like to apologise, however. We did not foresee the global pandemic. We did not foresee just how effective the ultra-fast broadband has been in making our country less dependent on geography and overcoming the tyranny of distance. And that means that the Kāpiti coast is an even more attractive place to be. Now, I've got some reservations about the market as it applies to housing. I think it has failed, particularly in terms of delivering the smaller units that we desperately need in our community. But one thing the market does do is it supplies magnificent metrics called prices. And if you've got the submission of the Housing Task Force in front of you, you'll see it's largely figures. I don't intend to go through those again. The headline is that in the last 12 months, house prices in Kāpiti have gone up by about a third. This is unprecedented. We live in unprecedented times, and I maintain the fear that, in fact, this is just the curtain raiser to what happens when Transmission Gully opens. We have got a very, very real issue in front of us, and Council has to be part of that. I'd like to congratulate Councillor McCann for the work that he's been doing recently. I'd like to congratulate the Council for at least beginning to get on the board, and we await further concrete progress. But thank you very much for at last getting on a very, very important part of our community. I don't think I have to talk too much about the human side of things, because as I look around the table here, quite a few of you have actually shared war stories yourselves in terms of housing. It's got to the stage now where most of us know people in very real housing issues. So we've got to do something about that. And I know that Council has looked other ways and said, well, it's their responsibility, it's not our responsibility. I'm afraid it's all our responsibilities now, very much including Council. Council has to do everything it possibly can, because our little community is in some strife, and even those members of the community who are already here are feeling more and more panicked and feel as if they've been priced out of their communities. I don't think that we can put up with that. There's one area where the Council cannot look the other way or point a finger the other way, and that's in terms of its pensioner housing. And there is a proposal around which, according to one of your submitters, Mr. Hargreaves, says that his housing costs are going to go up by 50% as a result of what's in your long-term plan proposals. I don't think that is socially or politically sustainable. So I'd just like to leave it at that, and thank you very much for your attention.
Questions? Of course. Councillor McCann.
Thank you very much, John. And I think on behalf of the councillors who weren't here and those that were here, that report has stood the test of time, and it was certainly shown when the report that we got to see agreed with so many of the recommendations. And I think your point that the time to act is now, rather than just to continue meetings. And I'm confident that council and staff are really trying to ramp this up. And just so that you're aware, yesterday, and Jackie's been keeping a score sheet, there were 14 out of 21 who supported the housing question, and we've heard a lot of really, really good comments. So my question to you, because the Mayor will tell me that I have to have a question, is with the senior housing and the issue that we have with getting any government rebates, what is your opinion? Should we be trying to convince the government to change their rules, which I think previous councils and all across the country have tried, or do we need to keep it ring-fenced for seniors?
I think that's a dead duck. I've talked to, I think, 7 housing ministers, the last 7, and they've all said, we'd like to do it, but it's too darned expensive. And so, no, and that's perhaps something that I should have mentioned before in my comments about the CCO. Please structure that. If you're thinking about using that for housing, please structure that in a way that it means that your pensioners will qualify for the income supplement, because that's what it's all about. You've got to go down the Christchurch route, where in fact it's not a completely, as you say in your documents, completely council-controlled organisation. You've got to give up some of the reins, and it'll involve talking to the bureaucracy. But unless it is not seen as a completely council-controlled organisation, I don't think that the pensioners will get the accommodation supplement that is available to pensioners who are not tenants of councils. So that is very important. It means that you can charge on those units a rate which is close to the market rate. The pensioners, eventually all of them, will not suffer because they're getting supplemented by central government, and that is where the subsidy comes in that is required for social housing. If you don't want to do it, let central government do it, but you've got to structure your organisation in a way that takes advantage of that mechanism.
Thank you. And just to follow up on the CCOs, if we had a CCO that was focused on housing, would it be your thoughts that all profits from that CCO would be ploughed back into further housing? Absolutely,
absolutely. Closed circuit. And I think that it's been shown in other places that that is a viable model, that you can expand the housing and that you can keep your tenants happy and you can make progress without calling on the ratepayers. And I imagine that's what we're all about.
Thank you, John.
Councillor Elliott.
Look, thank you very much, John, for your expertise, and I ask you, because I'm not as clued up on this as you are, if you could possibly at some point write down everything that you have just said about who's entitled to what and how, and email that to us, please, as background information. I
Sure.
would really appreciate that. Thank
Sure.
you very much. It's a real spider web trying to work those out.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Oh, John.
Hold on, Councillor Coates.
Good morning. Look, and thank you for your knowledge in this area and the time that you've put into some of the council work over the years. Certainly helpful. In terms of the points that you've made around in your submission around Mr. Hargraves, have you looked further, approach council around just clarifying whether those numbers are actually correct, that 50% increase? And I'm not saying it isn't. I've got a big question mark myself over...
So have I.
Okay.
So have I. I was at a meeting where Councillor Halliday was also present, where I asked the question 3 times of officers, and no answer was forthcoming. So all I can do in the absence of a council response is assume that there's something to it.
Yeah, sure. So certainly a 50% increase in an individual's circumstances isn't intended. So I'll be looking into it, given that it's in the Otaki area, but I just wondered whether you had done that work and confirmed that that's all bona fide, and it sounds like there's still a question mark over it.
I think there is a question mark, but certainly it's something that should be closely looked at, and I think most people in this room would agree that a 50% increase on someone on fixed incomes, and incidentally in his submission he said he's going well over the 40% in terms of accommodation costs, which is above the internationally recognised limit of 30%. So you don't want that for your pensioners.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John.